This happened when I was in high school, long ago. My mom just recently found the paperwork about it when she cleaned out her office upon retiring from the police department. I remember being upset and scared when it happened, but reading the details as an adult, it sounded even worse than I remembered. I was a 17-year-old female working at a flower and gift shop. It's nighttime. A man comes in, short, overweight, balding, 40s, and creepy. He tells me about how he needs an apology gift for his girlfriend, so I offer a bouquet. Obviously, it's a flower shop. He says she doesn't like flowers because they die. This was the first weird thing, as he came into a flower shop. Then, he goes into detail about how he hit her, and asks me if I think he was right to do so. This was long ago, so I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something along the lines of, not if you want her to continue being your girlfriend. He then tells me what a great job I'm doing, and asks me when I get off work. I dodge answering, and he leaves. Nothing for 6 months. Then, right before Valentine's Day, he walks in the door 1 minute before close. It was dark, and from the outside, it looked like I was working alone, as my coworker, about 40-year-old female, was in the bathroom. Instinctively, it felt like a predator had just entered the room. You know when something isn't right, and everything felt not right. I then notice he has a tarnished revolver tucked into the front of his windbreaker, which is halfway unzipped. It was obvious he wanted it seen. I quickly scribbled a note to my coworker that said, "He has a gun," and handed it to her when she came out of the bathroom. She calmly walked to the phone and looked at me, wordlessly asking if she should call the cops. I shook my head no, as I felt it would escalate the situation. God forbid he heard the police coming and took us hostage or something. I was just going to try and act as calm and normal as I could, and hopefully not tip the situation into something more dangerous. He spends 15 minutes wandering around what was a fairly small shop. In retrospect, he was probably waiting to see if my coworker would leave, as it was now well past closing. Finally, he places an order for a pickup on Valentine's Day, which gives me his name and his info for the police report I'm sure as hell about to file. He buys a card and pulls out a wad of $100 bills, which he slowly thumbs through, as though looking for the right one to which to pay for his $40 order. I ask him if he wants a bag, as it wouldn't be very inconspicuous if he just showed up at home with the Valentine's Day card. He replies, "No, I don't feel like being inconspicuous tonight," which seemed like an obvious reference to the gun hanging out of his coat. He leaves. We quickly lock the door and watch him sit in his truck outside. We were not about to exit the shop until he was gone. Finally, he pulls out of his parking spot and moves to another spot further away and continues to just sit there. I don't know how long we waited, but he finally left. I called my mom, crying. She called the police, who came to the shop the next day to take a report. I told my best friend at the time what happened. She told her mother. Her mother happened to work with the man and informed security at her job. She said he was very weird, creepy, and liked to talk about weapons a lot. Security at his job. It's a large company with government contracts and things having to deal with tech and security. Pulled him into the office and questioned him about it. He claimed it was a glove in his pocket, not a revolver. The police were pissed that his company made contact with him about it before they did. and he successfully dodged the cops' multiple calls and visits to his apartment. My mom, much to my teen fury at the time, made me quit my job, which was devastating as I loved it there. In retrospect, totally the right call. Dude came in on Valentine's Day, picked up his order. I never saw him again.
This happened back in early 2015. I was then a 19-year-old guy living in a rather bad area of Portland, Oregon. Even though there were occasionally some belligerent homeless people and drug addicts, violent muggings very rare, and most of the city felt very safe, even at night. One of my best friends turned 21, and we decided to go bar hopping and then go clubbing. I was in a group of about a dozen other people, and 3 of which were my roommates. Unfortunately for me, I was the only one in my group who was either under the legal drinking age or did not have a fake ID card. And this meant that I was unable to enter the bar. However, to my luck, there was a nice Mediterranean restaurant right across the street from the bar, which I ended up going to. I stayed there for more than an hour, and then I was ready to leave. I've done that walk many times, even at night, so I was never scared. Until this night, of course. From my apartment, my roommates took an Uber to the bar. And this meant I would have to walk back since I didn't have Uber and my phone battery was running low. The distance back to my apartment was about 3 miles. The time was already close to midnight and I would be reaching my apartment at around 1 a.m. I decided to walk the distance anyway, since I haven't been at the gym and thought this would be a good exercise. I begin my walk and pass by a lot of drunks. Even though some of the drunks would shout things at me, I never felt unsafe or threatened by them, so I was okay. However, the last mile to my apartment was through a darkly lit park that can be scary at night. Not because of any crime, but because there is only one street light in that stretch of road. I reached this somewhat creepy area at around 12:30. As I descend down the dark and narrow street, I notice a black Chevy Silverado speed past me and slow down once he passes me. The truck almost comes to a stop but then decides to drive ahead. I begin to shrug it off at first. However, this is where things start to get creepy. After I walk nearly a quarter mile forward, the Chevy Silverado comes down the opposite direction and does the same thing. When the truck slows down and almost comes to a halt, I begin to panic, but not openly show it. I pretend to ignore the vehicle, but my instincts tell me something is not right. The truck then starts to proceed, but this time, I cannot keep calm. I was in the middle of a dark and isolated park with no streetlights, and there likely won't be a single person in sight. After I walk about 500 feet more, I begin to look in horror as the same pickup truck comes flying towards me and puts a sudden brake about 100 feet behind me. One man, around twice my age and bald, opens the passenger door and comes out of his truck carrying what looked like a hockey club. I look behind and lock eye contact with him. He gives me the most haunting and sinister look I've seen from a real person. He begins to yell, "Get the fuck out of my sight or I'll fuck you up, mud slime." I'm of Indian origin and have brown skin, and mud slime was a racial slur directed towards Muslims. As I was planning my escape, I remember how there was a wooded area between the park and my apartment. Where I was, I can cut across the park and go through some woods. And then right across the woods was my apartment. This was smart because I have taken that shortcut during the day, and the truck will not be able to cut through the woods. Just as I ran towards those woods, I heard another yelling in the distance. "Fuck off, asshole," yelled another large guy walking on the opposite direction of the sidewalk I was. I then see another large man walking his German Shepherd towards me. After there, the truck driver then started running at us with his hockey club, and I made a run for it. I dart towards the woods. Fortunately, the truck driver decides not to chase us and gets back in his truck. I reach my apartment 5 minutes later. At the parking lot of my apartment, I happened to see the guy walking his dog. He looked like a roughed-up bodybuilder, so I was also a little afraid of him too. However, we had a pleasant conversation. I begin to head up to my apartment and look out my apartment window. To my disgust and horror, I see the black Chevy Silverado drive by my apartment and then leave. My friends came back home close to 3 in the morning, just after I went to bed that night. Thankfully, I never saw that creep again, and I moved out of that apartment a few months later. After this incident, I avoid walking alone in dark spots and isolated areas at night. To that stalker driving a black pickup truck, let's not meet.
This happened a few months ago to my friends and I. We are university students in Cape Town, South Africa. So, when we aren't trying to just get through the semester, we like to let our habits get the better of us and go out for drinks. On this night, we had just finished what felt like an extra long day at university and decided to head to a bar about 5 minutes from campus for some much-needed stress relief. The evening was going well, although a bit slow. It was enjoyable with everyone having a drink and getting a bit restless. So, me being one of the more outgoing ones in the group, I suggested we head to the pool bar not far from where we were. Everyone agrees and we get our stuff and go. We all jump in my car and we get to the bar, but being a Thursday night, parking was scarce. I finally managed to find a spot about a block away from the bar, but in a secluded side of the street. I should also mention that this bar is in one of the sketchier parts of town, but is normally quite safe due to the amount of nightlife associated with being so close to a university. We walked to the bar and no one really felt uneasy, nor did anything happen to make us feel that way, which was quite surprising. After a few hours of some pool and just relaxing, we decided it was time to grab dinner before the restaurants close, as being in South Africa means that most restaurants, even fast food, close really early at around 7 or 8 p.m. to comply with the curfew. We decided to stop at the pizza place below the bar to grab some food before we all decided what the plan for the end of the night was. Because our group was so large and the pizza place being so small, we decided to have those getting food go inside while the others who didn't just wait outside in the street. This was an easy decision as the pizza place had a massive open window with a built-on counter, so we could still all talk to each other. This is where things started to get a little weird. While we were waiting for our friends inside the pizza place to come out, this massive white van pulls up past us and stops. The driver wasn't an intimidating-looking dude. He was skinny, looked to be about average height, with shoulder-long blonde hair. A pretty standard-looking dude for the kind of area we were in. He calls me and asks if I think his van could fit in a parking spot just behind him. For perspective, this parking spot could probably fit like a small hatchback, maybe. This dude is driving a full long-size panel van. This makes me kind of uneasy, as I thought that, as a driver, you should know where your car can and cannot definitely fit, and this was one of them. I explained to him that I didn't think it was even worth attempting. He responds telling me that he has faith in his ability and I should come stand behind the van and direct him. This gave me major red flags, and after a few back and forths, he just pulls the emergency brake up and sits and stares at my friends and I for what felt like an eternity. He then thanked us and drove off. This sparks my friends to come outside from the pizza place, as they just saw what happened and were very confused. We are all kind of weirded out, but think nothing of it, and everyone eats their pizza as we try to decide what the plan is for the last hour or two we have before curfew. Most of us decide that this is where the night is gonna end, and we're all kind of weirded out by the guy in the van. A few others decide that they were going to just stay and Uber home a little later in the evening. With our group number cut down to 4, we decided to walk back to the car and just head home. When we left the pizza place, a homeless person calls us and was insisting that we had nothing to worry about with the guy in the van, which didn't help with anyone's nerves. We then decided to head back to the car, but as soon as we turned the corner to approach the side of the street where the car was parked, we see Van Man again, this time not quite so happy as he seemed in his encounter earlier. I made a cheeky comment about him finally finding a parking spot he could fit in while we were walking past each other, and he just stared at my friends and I, not breaking eye contact even when we passed him. I turned around to see if he was still looking. He was, but as we turned the corner of the side of the street with the car, I saw it and my heart sank. The van, horribly parked half on and half off the sidewalk, back door slightly open. Upon seeing this, I turn around and see Van Man is now walking towards us, but he said something that confused me at first, but immediately made sense after. He said, "Hey, please just watch my car," which confused me. But when he said that, 4 men sat up from leaning on the wall next to it and began following us. My friends and I were slightly ahead of them, so we were trying to discuss the game plan because it was obvious if we did nothing, something horrible was going to happen. My friends start walking faster, and I remain at the same speed, frantically searching my pocket for my car keys, all the while shouting at my friends to wait up and asking what the rush was, all in hopes the guys behind us, who were gaining on us, were oblivious to us knowing they had sinister intentions. As soon as the car came into view, we booked it, jumped in, and drove away. But we were only seconds away from not being that lucky. After locking the car doors, I saw the men surrounding the car. I managed to get us out, and looking back in the mirror, I saw a 5th man by the van at the bottom of the street. I still have no idea what their intentions were that night, if it was to rob us, or just beat us up, or worse. I don't really like to think about how lucky we were that night. I ask that when you're out, no matter how innocent an interaction with someone can seem, always pay attention to the little things. So, to the man in the van my friends and I saw that night, can we please not meet again?